Hi everyone, welcome to the CADR orientation for the batch of 2026. I'm Jyotsrup. I'm in the 2024 batch, and so this orientation aims to mainly tell everyone what ADR or alternative dispute resolution methods are, and to give you a hint into what CADR RGNU specifically does. So now I'll hand it over to our capable conveners Kushagra Gupta and Jannat to take it further from here. But essentially, we'll have two stages. Firstly, we'll discuss what ADR is, and then we'll go into what CADR is.
Okay, hi batch of 2026. I am so happy to have you all here, and I hope your experience, whatever till now you have, I believe you have been through other orientations or not, or this is your first orientation with the center?
No, it's not the first one. We
No,
had
we
many
have
We have
orientations.
been to many
And
No, no,
orientations,
no,
yes.
not a
the
center
center,
orientation.
I guess.
No,
It
this is
was.
the first one with the
This is the
center.
first center.
For centers, this is the first one.
Yes, yes.
oh, there is a Stuti in your batch.
I am.
Okay. Nice. It's really nice to have you all here, and I really expect all of you to be interactive today. Turn on your videos. This is not a class. We are not going to scold you or anything. We're just going to talk to you, going to clear your doubts about the center, because we are going to introduce you to Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution. And if you have any questions, ask about it. You can ask us questions about basic. We have members from fifth year. I am from fifth year. We have members from fourth year, third year, second year. So you can ask us anything you feel like, and feel free to interact today. Okay, so my name is Jannat and I'm from fifth year. And now my convener, our second convener, Kushagra, he'll introduce you to what ADR and CADR is.
Um, Hi everyone. I hope you're doing well. As already introduced by Jannat, my name is Kushagra Gupta and I'm also a convener at CADR RGNUL. The entire idea of this orientation is to, get you in touch with what CADR is doing, what ADR is, and how you can explore different avenues, alternate avenues in this field that now you'll have to be bombarded with for the next 5 years. I think that's already evident from the orientations that you might have already had. So, in very, very brief terms, and to justify the interests of time, CADR started in 2018. It was an initiative for all of the people who did start it to move away from conventional litigation ideas and start a sort of orientation and literature towards what this alternate culture is. And since then, since 2018, we've been rising, we've been working cohesively to contribute towards the ADR community, to contribute towards ADR literature in India, and also present it as a more viable alternative, not only for practitioners, but also for students to research in and build their careers in. So we do have, say, a very competent division in terms of our teams. We have the social media team, we have the design team, we have the research team, we have the editorial board, we have events, and we've similar teams in that regard. And I think our competent members will be very happy to tell you more about it. So the idea is that we're that division, we're that group in RGNL itself that is promoting these activities and working towards the development of all students towards that singular goal, which is achievement of higher levels of proficiency in ADR culture.
At the very outset, I would like to congratulate everyone for being a part of our GNUL. This is Avichitra. I'm from the So I've been given 5 minutes to introduce you to the concept of ADR. So what is ADR? So I will basically deal with majorly two questions. What is ADR and why ADR? So moving on to the first question, alternative dispute resolution. This is a confluence of three terms, alternative, dispute, and resolution. If we don't go on into the consecutive chronology here and start with the word dispute here. dispute or conflict is basically of 5 types: man versus man, man versus society, man versus self, technology, and nature, and a number of other conflicts are coming in. So, how do we resolve this conflict? So, if we consider the conventional methods of conflict resolution, the conventional, pardon me, senior, I'm not.
It is visible to us.
It is visible, right? Thank you so much, Puneet. Okay, thank you, Anjali. So, what is the conventional methods? No, it's absolutely fine. You can also send me smileys if you want to, like thumbs up if you understand, and smiley emojis. I really like those. So, the conventional, thank you. Conventional methods of dispute resolution, it's basically litigation type, or taking to any particular forum, taking a particular dispute to a particular forum to be resolved there. And as we all know, there are basically 2 types of systems here, the adversarial system and the inquisitional system. However, not going further into the details of these 2 systems, after dispute, after a conflict arises, and the conventional method of dispute resolution, that is litigation, what is the alternative here? The alternative is basically moving out of court, wherein we involve a third party, to a neutral third party, to a particular dispute, and create a system which is client specific or rule specific in cases of certain alternative dispute resolutions, and create a system wherein there are characteristics such as neutrality, there is transparency, there is more control given to the parties and less control over the rules, regulations, and other laws that we study in the course of our 5 years. Basically, that what we study in the course of 5 years is all a part of the litigation system. However, what is the alternative? There are majorly 5 types of alternative dispute resolution systems, that is arbitration, negotiation, mediation, conciliation, client counseling, and in certain cases collaborative law, lok adalats we can state. We can consider DLSA or the State Legal Services Authorities action to be also a part of ADR system. This is what is ADR. Now, coming to the next question, why ADR? Why ADR, and why all the studies that have been conducted by various national law universities? In your right hand, you can see 2 graphs I've presented by a study. It's a study of the Gujarat state by Gujarat National Law University. It states that there are 78% of the population engaged in a particular dispute considers alternative dispute resolution to be a viable method for resolution of its dispute. Yes. So why is this so important? And the numbers are going high because, as we all know, India being an adversarial system wherein 2 parties are represented by their lawyers, and they get a third party, a neutral third party, that is the judge, who decides the dispute, who is considered to be wise enough to decide the dispute, has a number of loopholes. The loopholes being, number 1, the tendency of cases, which you can see on your left hand side. The pendency of cases and the excessive time that litigation takes in order to complete. In general, we consider that 15 years minimum a particular dispute, a particular civil dispute takes in order to its entire process to be complete. And there are a number of rules, regulations, laws that one has to follow. Therefore, this is the reason why people are taking to ADR and taking into ADR institutions in general. So this completes my presentation on why and what ADR is. I hope I did give you some excitement over the topic of ADR, and I will pass my baton to Kabir, who will explain to you the different types, arbitration in general, moving on to mediation, negotiation, conciliation. Any questions? Am I allowed to take questions?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yes, you can.
Can you share this PPT with us after the session?
Sure, sure. No problem.
Thanks.
okay, I think uh, Abhishekta did a great job of explaining what ADR is, but I think it will also give you more insights as to when we get into the specifics of what are the different types of ADR mechanisms that we deal with and which you will also have to deal with for the next 5 years. So I think going into them, I think the very first one of it is arbitration. You must have been aware of or have heard of it. So I think Kabir would start with the very first mechanism and then we can go forward accordingly.
So, hi everyone, I am Kabir. I am in my 4th year and I also happen to be the managing editor of the CADR blog along with Ananya, who's unfortunately not with us here today. I will be dealing with the main show, arbitration. That is, it is definitely the biggest form of alternative and the most popular form of ADR. So, first things first, what is it? So, imagine court, but like cheaper and more convenient. Okay, so guys, the Indian courts are slow, they're very costly, and they're also very, very irritating, to be frank, right? But imagine if you had a clause in your contract that enabled you to pick judges, agree on a time and place to resolve your disputes outside of court. All of this while paying much less and not leaking any information. That is essentially what arbitration is. Okay? Arbitration is a procedure in which a dispute is submitted by agreement of the parties to one or more arbitrators who makes a binding decision on the dispute. In choosing arbitration, the parties opt either for a private dispute, it is essentially a private dispute resolution instead of going to court, right? So let's move on to how does it work. Okay, so essentially what happens is when there is a dispute, one of the parties invokes the arbitration clause. They'll then file a notice of arbitration, which is essentially their intent to arbitrate, right? Then the parties will appoint arbitrators, usually in accordance with the rules that they've already chosen, which is also mentioned in the arbitration clause in their contract. Then they will file statements, they will examine witnesses, there may be examination of evidence, there might be a third party who files an unbiased report, all of that sort, right? And then the panel of arbitrators, which is called a tribunal, will then give an award in favor of a party, and which award will need to be enforced by the parties. Now, the most obvious question you guys will have now is what about enforcement, right? I mean, it is an out of court procedure. It is between two private parties with the help of a third party. So, what happens if one party says, okay, I'll attend the arbitration proceedings, but just doesn't pay up, right? What if the arbitration just doesn't get enforced? So, this is exactly why all countries, in accordance with the UNCITRAL model rules, have arbitration acts to enforce these arbitral awards, right? So now let's move on to types of arbitration. I think I'm pretty close to ending my 5 minute limit. So, okay, guys, there are essentially two types of arbitrations, ad hoc and institutional. Ad hoc arbitration is essentially conducted by the tribunal following the rules that have already been agreed between the parties, all rules that have been laid down by tribunal in case of non-existence of an agreement with regards to rules between the parties. Ad hoc arbitration essentially helps in great control over the arbitration, and it's the process is flexible and the parties are also ensured that it is cost effective. However, the success of the ad hoc arbitration is ensured only in case of mutual agreement of parties. Now, when we compare this to institutional arbitration, it's a little better, personally, I believe, because in institutional arbitration, the arbitration is in accordance with the rules of a procedures of an institution, right? And then the same provides important aspects of arbitration, such as appointment of arbitrators, um, managing of the process, identifying venues, and all of that, right? I see. Do we have any questions? If you have any questions, you guys just don't message. You can just like unmute yourself and ask me.
Yeah, I have a question.
So, yeah, sure, go on.
So I think you mentioned that ADR arbitration in particular is way cheaper than the conventional method of litigation. But as far as I read, as far as I read, I think arbitration was way more expensive than the traditional litigation method. I mean, in terms
Right,
of
and why do? Yeah, no, of course. No, okay. So why? I mean, what do you sort of base that opinion? Is that an opinion or is that like a fact that you read somewhere? Because I mean, personally, what happens is it might seem like arbitration is more expensive because you have to appoint your judges, that is your arbitrators, you have to appoint your lawyers. But then what usually happens is if you file your case in a court, it goes on for a long period of time. So essentially what happens is over a 10-year period, those proceedings are way more expensive. What happens with arbitrations is that arbitral tribunals are supposed to render an award, which is essentially give a judgment in a limited period of time. So you pay your lawyers, you'll pay your arbitrators, but only for a 6-month period, right? So if you're paying like 10K to your lawyer and 20K to your judge for 6 months, that is essentially 30K for 6 months. What happens with court proceedings is that you pay 10K and your case goes on, for example, in the district court, then may go on to the high court, then we have to hire another lawyer, and it keeps going on and on and on, and you end up shelling out much more than what you would in arbitration. So in that way, it is essentially cheaper, also much more time, cost effective and time effective, because you'll probably have a timeline. With courts, you don't know because you can't influence judges, right? Judges are their own masters. You have no right. You just go sit in court, stand. That's it. That's all that you have to do. So that is how arbitration is cheaper.
I
Anyone else?
understand your
Guys?
point. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Why
Yeah,
do
of course.
cases take shorter to finish in alternate resolution? I mean, if it was so simple as to simply put a time limit, why wouldn't courts do that as well?
That is a good question. I mean, I see there are a lot of factors, right? But the point is that because arbitration as a process is so private, because essentially what you're doing is, who are arbitrators, right? Arbitrators are essentially, usually in India, the retired judges who you appoint. So essentially what you're doing is you're paying them to come and decide your case. Now, because you're essentially employing them in some sense, right? And you have agreed to rules, and the whole procedure, the whole proceeding is determined by you. So it is easier to put a time limit on it, right? But when you go to court, you're at the mercy of the judge. And what rules do they follow? They'll follow the civil procedure code or the criminal procedure code. Now that has been enacted by India. What happens in arbitrations is you decide. You're the master of your own proceeding. So that is essentially why it's much faster. And as for why courts are not doing it, they're trying, man. They've been trying for 10 years, but it's not working. And that is why all these big companies, they opt for arbitration. And that is why it is the future. So you have to get into arb because you want to future proof your career, especially investment arbitration and commercial arbitration. Yeah. Guys, anyone else?
Can
Yeah.
it
Can I ask a question?
be settled by arbitration hearing?
Apologies, man. I think someone else spoke as well. I couldn't quite get you.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
go on.
I have a question too.
Wait, if you guys just go one by one.
Yes, I said that can a criminal case be settled by arbitration hearing?
Right. Okay. Interesting question. So no, they can't. And I believe it was the case of Booz Allen versus SBI Home Finance Limited, wherein the court delineated like some 10, 11 things that cannot be arbitrable. So first on the list, like you said, criminal proceedings. Then there is also fraud, insolvency, and stuff like that. But okay, guys, but if you want, and considering you guys have a lot of questions, I think I've done a good job briefing you all of you. So if you guys really want to get into this, these are the suggested reasoning on your screen. Note these down. Get into Redfern and Hunter. Very important for your basics of commercial arb. Get into Gary Bond. You have to read these, right? If you have any interest. And obviously, I'm always here. You can approach me anytime, right? And also, just read these books. If you have so much interest, just Google it. You'll find everything online. I don't think I should entertain more questions because we have a paucity of time. So I think that will
Guys,
be
we'll have a
it.
Q&A session at the end. So if anybody has any questions, you can
Yeah.
save them for then. And we have nothing better to do afterwards, so we can just address them all day long. But yeah, right. So we'll be proceeding with the next one. I believe it's negotiation, which is being sorry, apologies, mediation, which is Tanveer, Pratham, and Rachit will be handling it. So, guys, you can share your screen.
Right, give the presenter rights to me. I'll be presenting it.
Hi everyone, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
First of all, welcome to RJ Annual. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm Tanveer Kaur and I'm from 4th year. I have been part of CADR since like last year, so this is my second term and I'm heading events as well as competitions team. I'll basically acquainting you guys today with the basics of mediation as an ADR process and how the academic competitions are conducted, and my teammates will also, touch upon these aspects later on. I read this quote by Joseph Grimbaum, and I think it explains mediation quite well. He says that an ounce of mediation is worth a pound of arbitration and a ton of litigation. So I think you guys can get the gist of it. Basically, mediation is a voluntary and binding process. It's where an impartial and neutral mediator facilitates disputing parties to reach a settlement, or basically just have a talk where they can, negotiate offers and reach a mutually applicable and amicable solution. The mediator's job is basically to facilitate the session and to create a conducive environment for the parties to resolve the dispute. I'll just basically state, the characteristics of mediation. It's an informal process. The rules are not strict and binding. The mediation is a client-driven process. It's completely confidential, and so disputing parties interact one-on-one, and it's inexpensive. It's a speedy mode of dispute resolution. It's more, we can say, it's more interest-based than rights-based, and it enables parties to have their own agreement, own terms of agreement, and as I already said, it's cost efficient and it's not that time consuming. Now, mediation is definitely far more a satisfactory way to, disputes as compared to litigation, as there is no appeal or revision in a mediated case, and the disputes are well settled and are finally settled. Now, if we go into the process a little, it begins with, it's a very simple, informal process. Parties can have their own rules. A mediator can have his or her own process, definitely. But it basically goes with introduction, where parties tell each other's positions, and then it goes into the joint session where they make offers, counter offers, negotiations take place. Then there's also an opportunity for a caucus, which is a private session where each party discloses their interest. They can talk to the mediator in the absence of other parties. And then again, the joint session renews and the parties can talk more, have negotiations. And towards the end is the conclusion, where hopefully the parties have settlement agreement, have terms for settlement, or they can have a decision about a future meeting. So that's essentially what mediation is as a process. And my teammates will also explain you how the competitions take place briefly.
All right, thank you, Tanveer, for this introduction and briefing them about the mediation. So hi guys, I'm Rachit. I am in 3rd year and I am also a member at CADR. This is my 2nd year with CADR. We don't have a lot of time today, and we have like 5 to 6 minutes to cover each and every topic because there are a lot of topics. So as you know, the foundations have already been let down by the Tanveer. I'll let you know about how a mediation process and what are the basically roles and duties of the participants of a mediation process, right? So there are basically 3 types of persons in any mediation process, and these roles and duties will be very helpful to you when you go ahead with your mediation competitions and other competitions, because once again, you must have heard about moots and all, but competitions are now not limited to moots or essay writing. You'll have like a number of opportunities with mediation competitions, negotiation, and client counseling, and many more. So we'll start with the mediator. So the image over here, the person in blue, this represents what a mediator does. Basically, you are a facilitator. A mediator as a person is a facilitator. He's not a judge. You're not there to advise. You're not there to give solutions. You're just there so that these two parties who have a dispute can talk. Okay. So once again, there was certain number of competitions in where mediators were not marked. They were there were non-competitive competitions in that particular regard. You'll definitely understand more when when we'll have a orientation session and mock session for doing the mediating rounds. Secondly, what mediator does is he sets up the environment for the parties, right? He set up the agendas. He'll get the parties to talking about their dispute and take them through this lane of reaching to the solutions. Thirdly, you'll have to be neutral, impartial, unbiased, and all other synonyms of these particular words. Because once again, you are not a judge, but you are in the capacity of in the capacity of mediator. You cannot take sides with any single party, either the respondent or the petitioner side. You cannot do that, right? Fourthly, you have to maintain the confidentiality. Confidentiality is very important in a mediation process, because it will lead to my next point, which is building the trust in the process. If the parties don't have the trust in the process, there's nothing, they'll never come back for a mediation, right? Now we'll come to the role of a council. All right, so you can see these particular councils over here. You must be aware about them. These are the world famous councils, but yeah, we don't have to be like them. Okay, so councils, basically in a mediation competition, what a council does is he introduces his client and he acts as a confidant of that particular client. You have to introduce your client. You have to tell what agendas this particular person has, and what are the underlying interests of this person has. You should know it, right? Then you have you'll only go ahead with the advisory role. You'll not use the law terms and all right. You will analyze the offers that are on the table, and you can never cross your client. You might think that this person is going pretty wrong, but that can't be done. Okay, I'll quickly sum it up by taking the role and duties of a client. So client is the person who is basically the most important person, because he is the one for which this process is being done, right? All right. And so the session is about the client, but not you alone, right? You have to involve the other parties. You are the master of the fact, so you need to present what you want to be presented. You don't need to manipulate it, but you need to you need to have a hold of which facts have to be given away and which not. Understood? With regards to the role playing point, so this is particularly for the competitions, and you will better understand when will the mock session, as I've already mentioned. So you don't have to over enact, right? You only have to enact, right? There will be certain people who might do the whole melodrama and even use glycerin and all to shed tears. No, you don't have to do that, but you have to be empathetic. You have to be sympathetic with the other person if required. So these are the roles and duties of a client. We'll definitely I'm ready to take up any questions that you have, because I'm guessing there must be many, but I cannot currently see all of them because I'm seeing the screen. And so yeah, I'll stop this recording over here.
I read someone say that once I read someone say that it sounds similar to meditation. So I just want to say that you guys can keep searching about mediation on the internet until your predictive tech start typing mediation instead of meditation. I think that's what happens in the starting. But Avishekta is right, it's peaceful too. Yeah, right.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Is there any difference between mediation and arbitration? Like the previous guy spoke about arbitration and they sound very like the things are very similar. So is there any difference?
Yeah, of course, there's a difference. In arbitration, we set up a tribunal which has roles similar to a judge. However, in mediation, there's a mediator who who is not there to make decisions. Who is not Arbitrators give you an award which is binding on the parties. However, in mediation, the parties themselves come up with the terms that they settle on. The mediator is just there to facilitate the session, not make any decisions or give suggestions as well.
I also have a question.
Yes, please,
Yeah,
please
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yes. So suppose I am a mediator. Is there any set of rules or parameters which I have to follow while analyzing the arguments, the evidences?
Right. So, although we'll have, as Rajit mentioned, we'll have a mock session where we'll enact the whole procedure for you. But yes, mediator, one thing I'll put very, at the forefront. In mediation, we don't use terms like arguments, contentions, because as I mentioned, it's a very informal process. It's a talk. It's almost like a meeting. You go there and talk to the opposite party. That's, the disputing parties, and you just mention, and the mediator's role is basically to help them talk, to ask them questions to, so that they can brainstorm of offers and counter offers, so that the parties can actually talk, just to facilitate a talk.
Okay.
I have a
Am I
question.
audible?
Are the arbitrators and the mediators essentially only from the legal background, or there can be people from various backgrounds?
For in case of mediation, there are obviously trained and certified mediators who, but it is not necessary for them to have a legal background. Anybody can have a mediation training. There are obviously procedures and trainings for that, but it's not necessary have to be a legal background of to be a mediator.
I have a question. So, how do we take ADR to the masses? Because what we have heard right now is that it is very commercial based and it is very elitist. So, how do we take it to the masses? I mean, the common man.
Yeah, that's a question we all should definitely brainstorm. And however, I think the things are moving in the right direction. We have mediation panels in the district courts. Consumer courts are asking parties to go for mediation. The courts are asking people to do mediation in family disputes as well. So I think it is we are all moving in the right direction. Obviously, there needs to be more awareness, and I think creating awareness and having more legal framework for the same can help us take it to the masses.
Yeah, and adding to what said, we also
I
have
have a
mechanisms.
question.
So you can send in your questions in the chat box. We'll be addressing them. We're already answering all the questions that are there. Further, after we're done with this session, we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So you can put their questions there, if that's fine. So you can send it in the Q&A box.
In the Q&A session we'll have later, you can
Yeah.
address your questions directly to us via mute, but right now we want to address all the topics one by one so that you can get a
Yes.
understanding quickly.
Yeah, and just continuing, we do have mechanisms concerning Lok Adalats, panchayats have mediation formulas. So it's going in that way, but of course there needs to be more awareness in that regard. So with this, I think we're done with mediation. I think we can move forward with the next segment that we have here.
Everybody, batch of 2026, welcome to RGNUL. I am Chavi. I am in my third year, and I am a member of the Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution. I'll be explaining to you all about negotiation, which is yet another means of solving disputes via alternate dispute resolution. So before I begin, I would like to ask you all what you understand in its most basic definition. What do you understand from the word negotiate? Batch of 2026, what do you understand from the word negotiation or the word negotiate?
Am I audible?
To solve the problem by talking.
Finding to come to a consensus, basically.
Finding ways to solve disputes.
Discussion, I think.
Expressing what we are
Finding a common solution.
Right. So somebody wrote in the chat box that negotiation means bargaining. So in the simplest terms, negotiation means bargaining. To negotiate means to bargain until you come to a solution which is mutually acceptable to both parties. The most common example of negotiation, which we can see in our daily lives, is our mothers buying groceries or buying vegetables from a vendor. So the vendor basically gives a high price and we want to buy vegetables at a low price. So our mothers keep bargaining until the shopkeeper is convinced to sell the vegetable at a relatively lower price. Now, how this essentially benefits us is, for example, we want to buy a commodity at rupees 50 and the person is selling it at rupees 100. We go there and we tell them that we're only ready to pay rupees 50 for this. He'll obviously not be ready to sell it for rupees 50, but if you are good at bargaining, that is, if you are good at negotiating, he might be willing to reduce the price by a certain extent. By doing this, we can come to a middle ground wherein maybe we can buy the product for rupees 80. Herein, we save rupees 20 from our earlier expenditure and the person sells the commodity for rupees 80 in comparison with rupees 50, which we were previously demanding. So basically, the reason why I'm explaining this to you is to explain how negotiation is a mutually beneficial process, how both the parties benefit from a negotiation settlement. Now, when we attach a legal connotation to it, it is very similar to mediation, with the only difference being that negotiation is between two parties without the presence of a mediator. Unlike mediation, there is no center, middleman, there is no facilitator to facilitate this mediation. It is only a negotiation between two clients who are facing a problem and their respective counsel. Now, the thing with negotiation is, I'll give you another example. This is a very common example given in all seminars and webinars related to negotiations. So you might have heard of it earlier. There were two parties who were fighting over an orange. Both the parties wanted one entire orange, and they were continuously having a dispute over who should get the orange. Ultimately, what happened was they sat down, they communicated their problems to each other, and the settlement that they came to was that one of them needed the pulp of the orange to make juice, and the other one needed the zest of the orange to make a cake. And therein, after communicating, after interacting, they bargained and reached a solution wherein one of them took the pulp and the other one took the zest. So this primarily is the essence of negotiation, wherein both the parties have to come to a middle ground. Now, why should people negotiate? Why is negotiation a viable option? Why should people subscribe to it? It is because when you go to litigation, there is always a winning party and always a losing party. Depending on the merits of the case, obviously the parties would differ from case to case, but there is one party which always loses. When you are negotiating, you are in a win-win situation. So basically, both the parties win. Both the parties benefit from the dialogue. And it also helps in the maintenance and preservation of the relationship. Obviously, when one party loses, they would have bad blood, they would have a grudge against the other party, which would prevent them from continuing the healthy relationship that existed earlier. However, in negotiation, when one of the parties sees that the other party is willing to compromise, the other party is willing to come to a middle ground, this relationship will only become more solid and would be maintained for a longer period of time. Secondly, as was addressed in mediation and arbitration as well, negotiation is also a much more cost-effective solution than litigation. It is also very flexible as it only operates at the discretion of both the parties. There are no courts involved, there are no judges involved, there are not even mediators involved in this process. So basically, the only people involved in this settlement are the people who will be directly affected by the results of the negotiation agreement, and therefore it is a self-driven process. Because people have to benefit from the solution that comes out of the settlement, they automatically do it in a speedy manner, which saves time. So it is cost effective, time effective, it is flexible, and also it is extremely confidential and private. In litigation suits, the proceedings between the parties can be made available to the public, but given the characteristics of negotiation, how maybe companies might want to negotiate and might not want their secrets to be exposed in the public and might not want their profits or losses to be out in the public, it happens in an extremely confidential and private setting, wherein only the parties who are negotiating get to know about the merits of the case and get to know about whatever is happening in the settlement. We see basic negotiation examples, as I already explained, in our daily lives. It can go from something as simple as our mother buying groceries to something as complicated and as important as two prime ministers of different countries negotiating over a foreign policy, or two companies deciding how they're going to work, maybe a consumer company and a producer company deciding how they would be sharing their profits and losses, how they would be consuming stuff, how they would be producing stuff. So this is how negotiation essentially works. How negotiation happens is that there are two clients who are the people who are affected by whatever is happening, and they hire their respective attorneys, which are called the clients, who advise them on the legal intricacies. Now, negotiation is a process which drives itself on factual basis more than a legal basis. Unlike legal proceedings, there is not a law involved here, not a lot of law involved here. However, since it is very, very possible for the client to be not aware of the law, it becomes important for the client to hire a counsel who advises the client at every step on the legal outcomes, on the legal consequences of the decisions being made. So you will explore more about negotiation as you maybe watch videos of negotiation on YouTube or maybe participate in competitions yourself. But just to give you a brief gist of what happens in competitions is that you're given a proposition wherein you're told what the problem is. There is a party A, there is a party B. Both the parties consist of one client and one counsel each. The client goes and explains the problem, goes and explains the facts of the situation, and tells the other party where they are suffering and what they are suffering from. They basically explain the problems to each other. After the facts are clear, they discuss the agendas. Basically, when you're having a dispute, that disputes become manifold. You might have 3 problems, you might have 4 problems. And in a negotiation settlement, you might want to address more than one problem. So basically, you list down the agendas for the session that you're going to solve all of these problems. And if all these problems are mutually acceptable to the parties, they start, I would not say arguing, they start communicating and solving these problems. The role of the client is more of an advisory role. He keeps guiding the client as to what the client should do, whether or not it would be beneficial, and they give offers and counters offers to each other. For example, I'm a party and I'm suffering, and I tell the other party that this is my offer and I hope that you accept it. It is possible that the other party accepts it. It is possible that the other party rejects it. It is possible that the other party accepts a part of it and wants the other part to be modified. That is where the client comes in, the counsel comes in action, wherein he advises that this part will be beneficial to you. So this offering, cross offering, offer, counter offer keeps going until they reach a middle ground. Obviously, since there is a dispute which has been going on for quite a while, we cannot expect a negotiation settlement to render everything fruitful in one session, but it at least helps in preservation of the relationship, and further issues can be taken in subsequent sessions to solve the dispute amicably.
Right. So some basics of conciliation, right? To be very blunt, conciliation is essentially mediation, but with a twist that the mediator can themselves intervene in the proceedings, right? So the essential difference is, while in mediation, the mediator, who is a neutral third party, cannot intervene in the proceedings, in conciliation, this third party can present solutions to the parties which they might agree on themselves, but they do have a role of also having the conversation and making the parties come to the agreement themselves. But the main difference of having an active intervener in the conversation can allow for external perspectives to come in. So a basic, and this is just some basic introduction, but the conciliation is a method for prevention and settlement of disputes through third party intervention. It is a method of settlement. It is a process by which discussion between parties is kept going through the participation of a conciliator. Right. However, as mentioned earlier, the conciliator is an active participant in the process rather than a passive facilitator of the conversation, like in mediation. Conciliation is limited to encouraging parties to discuss their differences and to help them develop their own proposed solutions. It is voluntary, flexible, confidential, and in an interest-based process. And the parties seek to reach an amicable dispute resolution with the assistance of the conciliator, who is still a neutral third party, but can still recommend solutions. Right? In India, it's governed by the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, which is the main governing statute of arbitration, but it doesn't actually address conciliation as much. But the main benefits of conciliation are with regards to ensuring party autonomy. That, like in mediation, the parties can themselves decide where to have it, what's the structure, how to proceed with the whole thing. There's an expertise of the decision maker, which is always present in an alternative dispute resolution. That the person who decides, who is the third party for deciding everything, is a neutral person who is an expert in the field. Like every alternative dispute resolution method, it's time and cost efficient, and there is a confidentiality element. Now, conciliation specifically addressing it, it's not a very developed method of dispute resolution. Mediation and arbitration have a lot of jurisprudence to the field. It's very interesting if you consider the fact that mediation actually does not have a statute in India, whereas conciliation does, and yet mediation is relatively more prevalent. It's something that, for example, in our activities that CADR we're trying to address. But essentially, a conciliation as a method is just a more active form of mediation, if one wants to see it that way. There are certain more nuanced differences, some statutory differences that we could definitely get into more at advanced stage. But for the basics of it, this is what conciliation is. Apologies. Right. I'm trying to wrap it up fast because you have to proceed with other sections also. So I'll now be turning over the stage over to Vamik and Mevish to give you on briefing on what client counseling is. And after that, we'll be proceeding with what is CADR and all the teams. So everybody who has questions with regards to that, please just wait momentarily. We'll be coming to that. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mevish and I'm from the second year. Can just someone confirm if I'm audible?
Yeah.
You are.
Yes,
Yes,
you
you
are.
are.
Thank
You
you.
are.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about client counseling competitions now, which is another format of competitions that we have for which we will conduct mock section later for as well. So basically, the client counseling competition is as simple as the name suggests. It is basically a team of 2 counsels who have to assist a client with his or her legal needs. It is a simulation of an actual consultation session with a client. The counsels are given the general information from beforehand, which basically highlights the general nature of the subject matter of the client's problem. The actual session is mainly an interview with the client where the counsels have to extract relevant information from the client, explore with the client his or her preferred outcome, outline the nature of the problem, and present the client with the means or range of alternatives for resolving the problem. The interview with the client is then followed by a post-consultation period during which the participants, in the absence of the client, analyze the interview and discuss the legal and other work to be undertaken. In simple words, in a CC competition, there's the client, you are the counsel, the client has the problem. And the councils have to come up with the best possible way to deliver the best possible solution and also establish an effective professional relationship with their clients. This is a brief gist of what the entire competition is about. The councils are mainly evaluated against specific criteria that emphasize the use of listening, questioning, planning, and analytical skills in a lawyer or client interview. Why CC competitions are important is because it helps you in developing skills to deal with your clients. Participating in a CC competition provides a plethora of opportunities to develop valuable skills in interacting with and proposing solutions for clients, which is something which is a very important skill for a lawyer to have, right? This competition, rather than focusing on law, emphasizes more on the communication aspects and other interpersonal skills that are essential to represent clients. That's it from my side. I'll pass over to Vamik to talk more about this.
Thank you, Naresh. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Vamik Wasim and I'm from the third year. Now, very briefly, I'll explain to you all how to go about in a client counseling session because that essentially is a competition which we have in law schools. So, first of all, what essentially you have to do is to establish a working atmosphere. And by that, I mean you should try to make the client feel comfortable by exhibiting courtesy, sensitivity in a professional manner. You can do that by asking questions like how would they like to be addressed, tell them about the non-disclosure agreement, and tell them about, ask them about things like if they not have any trouble in joining the meeting and so on. Secondly, the most important part is that you have to understand the problem which the client is going through. And for that, you have to ask the client questions. Some of the information, the basic gist of the information, the client will give out himself. But then you have to ask questions in a way that you elicit the confidential information, which is explained by Mevish, which the confidential information which would be given to the client. Because there might be some information in terms of confidential information with the client that opens him up to legal exposure, or some information which might help your case, but the client is not aware of the same. So you have to elicit that information. And then you need to understand what are the client's needs, goals, and expectations. And then holistically, you have to analyze the situation and explain the problem as you have understood to the client, as well as the judges, which are judging you at that relevant point in time, so that it becomes clear to them that you have understood the problem in its entirety. So it's all about understanding the problem. And then you have subsequently to suggest them legal as well as non-legal alternatives in layman terms, because the client may not be well versed with legal jargon. So then you have to advise them and tell them, why do you think this way is the most prudent way to go with it? You have to leave it up to the discretion of the client. You have to just assist him in making that particular choice. Like, why do you think this is the best way to go about it? Why do you think mediation would be better rather than indulging in a quagmire of litigation? All these things have to be explained by you. And then coming to the second part, which like it's divided into two parts. First was the client counseling and then the post-consultation session. In the post-consultation session, as explained by Mevish, you have to discuss with your co-counsel the legal modalities. What do you think is the prudent way to go about it? Talk about legal issues which need to be researched upon. How will you go about it? You may use legal jargon here as need be. Just one small piece of suggestion would be you don't need to cite case laws or cite sections for that matter, because that does not serve the purpose of client counseling, because it is all about how well you understand the problem and how well you advise your client, not how much legal knowledge you possess. So it's always better to limit your discussion around the four corners of law rather than indulging into the modalities of the same. And yes, just to sum it up, it essentially is a test of how well you understand your client's situation, how courteously you deal with your client, how well you explain the legal side of the problem to him, and how you apply the law to the problem. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think so.
We're
All our
done with
members.
we're done with the what is ADR section. So now we'll be proceeding with the what is ADR section, which it seems that a lot of you are restless for. So firstly, I believe we'll be having the events team, which is led by Tanveer. So they'll be coming up and explaining what the events team does. So over to you guys.
So I'm heading the events and the competitions team, along with Rachit and Kushin. So the events and
I'm sorry, could you speak a little louder?
All right,
Little
I'm
soft.
sorry. So I was saying that I'm heading the events team along with Rachit and Kushin. They are the co-heads of the events and the competition team respectively. And what we basically do in CADR is take up the organization of webinars, seminars, panel discussions, or other sorts of meetings that we have. And we also take up, allotment and notification of competitions, all sorts of ADR competitions, whether that is mediation, arbitration, client counseling, negotiation. So we do the notification and allotment part as well. And we also organize the ADR competitions that happen in RGNUL. Obviously, what I'm saying is that we, alongside other members and other teams of CADR, we all work in collaboration. So that's essentially what events and competition team is. I think that that sums it up. Is that all?
Right, yeah,
Somebody would
Tanveer,
like to
I'll
add
add a
something?
little bit to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys. So basically, CADR has 6 different teams. Events team being one of them. Others are blog team, the editorial team, newsletter team. Then we have social media and outreach team, and then we have a research team. And these are the different teams, so that the division of labor and the division of work is done very according to the preferences and according to your interest. That's why this has been done. So yeah, basically at events team, we are all into the organization of different events which CADR organizes throughout the year. So like in the coming future, we have a negotiation competition. We have a workshop planned in a week. You all are invited to join. You will get the details soon. So yeah, we conduct and keep conducting these particular sessions to build the capacity and build and make the people who are interested in ADR field to have something, to have research, to have to think, to get a fodder for their thoughts, to to go ahead with these things. So this is what we do at the events team. And yeah, Tanveer has also told you about all the activities that we do. So yeah, this is what with regards to the events team. And if you have any questions, please shoot it at.
How would the selection take place for the committee?
Right. So we'll release a call to your batch. You'll have to go through 2 processes. I guess there are 3 stages of process. First, we'll ask you to fill a questionnaire in which there will be certain questions, and on the basis of that particular questionnaire, you will have an interview round. And after those interview rounds, we'll have the final selection and the final members from your particular batch who will be becoming the members of the CADR.
Questionnaire and CV. Apologies, Richard. It's questionnaire and a
Yeah,
CV.
questionnaire and CV. Right. Sorry.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
How many people will you be selecting from our batch?
All right, so this is something, these modalities kind of, I guess Kushagra and Jannat over here are in the best capacity to answer these. But are you with us, Kushagra? Would you like to answer them right away, or like
Yeah,
will you
I'm here.
maintain the suspense?
So, I mean, there's no suspense as such. There's no fixed number that we'd be taking from your batch, but it would not exceed 5 or 6 students. So that's the case.
And so how can we prepare attractive CV for us because we don't have many achievements in
So,
first year?
I think I'll be dealing with all of this once you know what the team is, because once you understand how the team works, then you'd realize that maybe you would not need that particular CV to orient with that team. So I think you already heard from the events team. I think we can now also hear from Rohit in that regard from the newsletter team, and then go on further at the end when I can deal with what we would be looking forward to, if that's okay.
Warm welcome to everyone to RGNL at the very outset. I am Rohit Guru and I'm currently in my fourth year. I will be heading the newsletter team for this academic session. So basically, as you students, you would be entering into your higher years of university and will be becoming professional. You realize that you need to stay updated with the happenings in the ADR world or any field that you choose to specialize. So the very objective for which the newsletter was initiated as a part of the CADR was to keep professionals, students, and everyone who is interested in the ADR world updated with the current happenings. So the issue that we want to discuss here was the amount of information that is available out there and the paucity of time that we have to gain that knowledge. So the entire objective of the CADR was to summarize these developments in different fields of ADR, which my teammates have already covered. So we take those updates, we summarize them, and we then publish it in a particular issue for the respective month. And Chavi, who is co-heading the team alongside me, will now explain what exactly the newsletter of CADR contains. Chavi, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. Hi, everybody. So, the newsletter, as Rohit already mentioned, contains very brief snippets of news from in and around the world of ADR. As you've already been acquainted with the various forms of alternate dispute resolution, you can see here arbitration. We cover news about domestic arbitration, about international commercial arbitration, and about investment arbitration. So basically, all the happenings regarding all of these categories of arbitration that happened during a month are addressed very briefly in the newsletter of the following month. Similarly, we have news for mediation and negotiation, which covers news regarding mediation inside India and outside as well. Alongside that, we have a section for case review, wherein we analyze the developments in any particular case that have happened in the particular month of which the issue has to be published. We briefly explain the facts of the case, the issues, and the judgments if they have already been rendered. This is what the newsletter contains. Thirdly, we also give a gist of the upcoming events which are going to be organized by CADR. As Rachit mentioned, we are organizing a negotiation competition right now, and we're also in the middle of holding an arbitral award writing competition. So this is the section which basically enlists what sections would follow, what events and activities would follow. And the last section basically shows the events which have already taken place. For example, this picture shows a client counseling competition which students from our college won. Similarly, it shows all the events which have happened inside college, maybe because of the intras or outside the college, with regards to client counseling, mediation, negotiation, arbitration. That is all for what the newsletter contains. Rohit, would you like to conclude?
Thanks, Shavi. So basically, as you know that these are small snippets of what is happening in the ADR world. So the new students who want to get into arbitration or any other form of ADR and who want to know about how things are happening in the world, the CADR newsletter along with the other books which my teammates have suggested would be a great place to start. And the newsletter will also coming up with new initiatives which will certainly make your experience much more interesting. And I think that is all from the entire newsletter team. Thank you.
Right, now we have Naksh and Anirudh from the research team.
Right, thank you, Jyot. Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
are.
I'm Anirudh, and I'm the administrative head of the research team at CADR. And I'll keep it short. With regards to the research team, the idea of the team is to conduct original research and also do primary research in terms of increasing the influence of the center beyond the college. So it's research not just in terms of articles, blogs, and papers that are published in various journals. It's also uh, trying to bring about tangible and practicable change in the ADR regime within the country. So we take up projects that conduct research with district courts, with high courts as well, and we aim towards influencing policy in a way which makes the legal regime more conducive to ADR and brings about aims to bring about a change within the sort of bureaucratic hurdles and red tapeism that ADR faces within uh, within the context of India. So with regards to that, the vision of the team is basically creating this sort of conducive atmosphere to whoever chooses to join it, to conduct not only these team projects that we take up as a team, but also enhance their own worldview and their own knowledge of ADR, and of course facilitate any individual endeavors towards research as well. So if you want to get published somewhere, because everyone at the end of the day wants something on their CV. So, if you want to get published somewhere, whether it's within CADR, whether it's outside, whether it's external, the research team plays a facilitative role and helps you achieve your goals. But of course, the primary purpose of the team is to work as a team towards producing original research and towards influencing policy within Punjab as well, where our college is located, and also beyond that. So just a quick example of a project that we've taken up last year and which will continue this year as well and hopefully finish as well, is to sort of try to transform the legal regime within Punjab, specifically with regards to Chandigarh, and try to initiate more institutional arbitration happening over there and trying to make the city a hub for arbitration. So that is a policy project that we've taken up since last year and will continue this year. And that is something we're looking forward to having you on board. And it's very exciting and it's very large scale. So this is something that can be taken forward this year substantially. So with regards to the modalities of the teams, Naksh will tell you
Everyone,
further.
my name is Nakshveer. I'm the administrative head of the research team along with Anirudh. Well, as Anirudh rightly pointed out, we at research team aim to find some policy gaps in ADR world, be it
Can you
arbitration,
please be a little
mediation.
louder?
Sorry,
Please be a little louder.
am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, bro. So, as I was telling that we aim to find some policy gaps in arbitration, mediation, or conciliation, and therefore give our inputs to the policymakers at the top. But we do not keep it exclusive to us. Members from CADR or outside can give their inputs, or they can also take up their own projects. We at research team are just here to help you people or help those people who want to take up those projects. Well, one another thing we aim to inculcate is a culture of research, which is one facet where a university has been particularly lacking since some of years. Well, in pursuance of that, we also intend to take some short-term projects, which might not only be policy project. A successful project is, I'm pretty sure that a successful project is not always a certainty. We just aim to build a space where people, where you guys or anyone from our university can pursue their interest in CADR. So if any one of you wish to read and write about ADR and do not know where to start, feel free to reach out to us, even if you are not a member of CADR in future. We'll be glad to help each one of you. I mean, there was a question regarding whether the ADR facilities are there in rural area, how prevalent are they? That might be a good research topic to research upon. We're just here to facilitate your ideas. So if any one of you have any questions or want to ask anything related to research in and outside ADR, feel free to chat. I'll just put my number or I'll just be there in the question and Q&A box for the next few minutes. You can have your questions there. I think
There's a few
that's it.
questions you can answer there. Right, we'll be moving to the editorial board. one of the managing editors, Kabir, is here, so he can take the lead on that.
Hi, once again, I am Kabir in case anyone missed my name the first time I spoke, which is highly improbable. All right, so guys, you'll find out that writing and researching are the most essential skills in law school. And when we combine the two, we usually get a blog or an article, which is the culmination of all of the work that you've done on that subject. And we at the CADR blog invite quality submissions like these on the latest developments in ADR, and we try to contribute to the existing literature. We receive tons of submissions year round due to the reputation we've built, and the manuscripts we receive go through a blind two-tier review process. And we also have a separate procedure for selection into the editorial board because it requires a special skill set. But essentially, guys, I would encourage everyone to apply, especially those people who want exposure to quality literature, who want to keep up with the happenings in ADR and want to improve and essentially inculcate writing skills in them, which is a necessity in law school. And I think that's it, guys. And I hope that this orientation was very enriching for you all, and looking forward to all of your applications.
Now we'll have Malvika from the
Hi
social media
guys,
team.
I'm Malvika Notia, and I'm in the fourth year. I'm the head of the social media and outreach team, and my co-head Astha Chawla. She's in the third year, but she's not present today in the meeting due to some prior engagement. Right, so we're a team of around about 11 people, and our main task is to create and to sustain a social media presence of CADR, its activities, and general ADR activities in general, right? So I'll be sharing my PPT to give you guys a general idea of what we do. Okay, all right. So basically, where you can find us, we are available on most common, social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, right? And we consistently update all these platforms, right? With I'll show you what all we update these platforms with. So if RGNUL and CADR, if you're hosting a competition, like the negotiation competition that we are currently going to host, that some panel talks or some webinar or anything like that. So we update all of our handles with that. Also, we focus on infotainment. You all know how important it is to engage with the audience through creative means. So, and also to mention, this is like, if any one of you feel like, you have the funny bone, or you're very creative, or you have that bent, where you can explain stuff, convey things in a very creative manner, then this is the team for you, right? So we also focus on Reels, IGTV, and memes. I'm sure all of you on Instagram, you follow pages like, Zomato or Swiggy, you see the kind of content they put forward, which sort of lets you know what they're doing, but also in a really interesting way. So we aim to do that, right? But with ADR and concepts of ADR. And also, of course, like you've already seen, CADR, we have a monthly newsletter of us, and we also regularly receive blog entries. So the social media platforms also help in keeping people abreast with that, and also like letting them know from time to time in case a new entry is there. So right, so the main offerings that we do. So on Instagram, Newsflash. Now Newsflash, as you know, the newsletter, it's a monthly newsletter. So you get the whole newsletter at the end of the month. So what we do with Newsflash is we provide you with little snippets of the possible news that would be in the newsletter, and we do this, fortnightly or weekly, so that you have a basic idea of what all news you could possibly read, right? And Throwback Thursdays. So this is a reel that we will be releasing on Thursdays, and this will mainly deal with any historic event or concept in the field of ADR which might be of interest. It's basically a trivia. Yeah, it's basically related to trivia, right? And of course, finally, ADR centric memes, which you will be getting to see a lot of in the upcoming days. And also, if you go to the Instagram page, you can see the archives. We made a lot of funny memes on the previous competition that we'd held. So you'll get an idea of what we will be doing, right? So this is mostly with regards to Instagram, where the creative content comes, right? And yeah, this is basically it. So we provide you with a snippet of the newsletter. We always update about the blog entries that are there, and also the competitions that we hold, and of course the memes. So this is about it. Stay tuned. We from the next week or so, the handles are going to get very active. So I would love if you guys, interact with it. And now when the call for, applications for CADR are sent across, it would be amazing to get some, more creative minds, and yeah, create even better content and grow the handles. That's about it.
Right. Hi everyone. So I'm Jyotsrup. I'm the head of the design and technology team, along with my co-head Rudra Pratap Singh Jambal, who's also here. So just to give a basic intro with regards to what the design and tech team does. So all of the people here who have given excellent examples of all the pioneering ADR work that CADR has been doing. But the reality is that to build an outreach for that, we require teams like the social media team and the design and technology team to ensure that whatever work we're doing, it doesn't only stay in RGNUL, it goes out, it reaches the outside world. So things like, so our job as the design and technology team is to ensure that the backend for all the things we're doing runs smoothly and stably and at a level that is suitable for CADR. So the CADR blog, this Cisco WebEx session we're running, and various other things are what is the ambit of the design and technology team. So things like graphic design, website design, and management of every technological based interface, especially in these pandemic times, has been the critical ambit of this team. So we're most likely we mostly have members with more of a technical bent of mind, but CADR encourages all its members to have multiple skills. So even our technical members do also contribute in the research area. So don't feel like you have to give up that research aspect of your work so as to contribute in this manner. You can contribute in a multiplicity of ways in CADR. And design and technology team and the social media team are your ways of doing this. So that's critically the ambit of the design and technology team. We hope to get some people from your team across in this year. And yeah, I think that's mainly it for the design and technology team. We'll now be proceeding with the Q&A session. And you can now just unmute yourself and ask the questions, but we would prefer if you do it steadily. And you can just ask questions directly to any person you want to, but we'll first have Kushagra
Yeah, hi. Can
give
you hear
some
me?
address some
Yeah,
points.
before you go forward, I just have one last thing to say. So I think it will cover more than 4 to 5 or 20 questions that you guys may have. Just in very brief terms, what CADR does is we do not do arbitration, mediation, or these events in our own capacity. What we do, in fact, is we facilitate arbitration, mediation, etc., and the awareness and education for the same in our capacity as students. And as the events, for example, we have mock mediations, we have mock client counseling competitions, etc. Those are what we regulate throughout the university. So if you go outside representing the university, you go through CADR. You don't have to be a member of CADR, but CADR essentially regulates the same. And this is how we organize competitions also. We are organizing a negotiation competition with Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas in October itself. And we continue to go forward with such collaborations with law firms also. So people asking me about jobs, we don't guarantee you jobs, but surely there are prospects. And that is something that you can also mention in your CV. Further, and as you can see, even we as students could give you, and I'm sure that this is such a competent team that I'm so proud of, could give you such an insight into ADR in every field and manner of it. And this is what we not only expect but also build through as members of CADR. And I think that has also been very instrumental through the flexible participation and supervision by our faculty advisor, Dr. Gurmanpreet Kaur, who's also there in this meeting. So just say hi. But I guess this is what we aim at CADR. We try to build an environment where you can, smile, but also work at the same time. And I think that is what we'd be looking forward to in your applications also. We'll be sending out the applications in an hour or two, so you get a breather. And as We already mentioned it would be a tiered process. We'll ask you for a questionnaire. In that questionnaire, you can talk about your skill set, how you fit in CADR in terms of the roles that we'll also provide in the questionnaire itself. You don't need to have a background in ADR, but only an interest. And your other skill set also speak of them. We have these different teams, which is events, which is social media, which is even the design and tech team, which are not specialized fields in ADR, but still form the support group without which I don't think CADR can exist currently. So don't let that hold you back. And I think that's more or less whatever I had to say. Jobs, our role, what you do here, and the recruitment process. So I think that covers 20 of your questions. If you have any more questions, please feel free to talk and
Yeah.
throw them out.
Am I audible?
Hi, I'm audible. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
hi
ahead.
Swagat. What's up?
Yeah, so I was asking that on an average, how much time do we have to devote to this center if we are a member, hypothetically?
It depends on your ambitions.
Time devotion is something that depends on how much you work. You can work in 3 teams, you can work in a single team, you can choose to be a part of this orientation session as a speaker, you can not do the same also. But more or less, I think we require at least 5 to 7 hours a week, but that's the least that we can ask for. And even if you have certain time issues in terms of management, you can always let us know, but not a situation where we do give you work, where we do rely on you, and you say, I can't do it later on and bail on us. That is something that we do not promote. We're understanding, but not very forbearing in that manner in every case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
What are the parameters you
Am
look
I
for in
audible?
recruiting?
So the parameters for recruiting, I mean, they'll be in the questionnaire, but to answer your question in short, they would certainly deal with your skill set in terms of your managerial ability, your skill set in terms of whether or not you've been writing or researching in any field, be it even in English literature in 12th grade, that's fine. And furthermore, we also look into whether or not you have special graphic or social media skills, because since we're functioning in an online paradigm, I think that is an asset at this time. So we're taking you and your personality as a whole and fitting that into the center. We're not looking at specialized individuals in the field of ADR as such, but competent individuals who we think can learn with us and can also make us learn throughout the year.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Okay, I have a two-part question. Firstly, can someone apply for 2 teams in the CADR?
Yes,
Like,
you can. You certainly can. You apply to CADR. It depends on your quality of work and your interest. Let's say you apply for events team at the same time, you can also be a part of the editorial board. So you work both ways. But then at the same time, you also have to manage 2 things within CADR. So you have to be very careful while doing that. But we don't tell you that if you have to work in one place, you can't work in the other. We usually do encourage all our members to work everywhere. Like now, we are going to have a negotiation competition in October. So the entire center is going to work for it.
okay.
So you don't have to worry about that.
And my second question, does being a part of the CADR give you an advantage when it comes to being selected to go for competitions in alternate dispute resolutions?
No, it does not. Because the competition, you going to an external competition depends on your rank in the intra-mediation competition. We organize an intra-mediation competition and an intra-client counseling competition. On the basis of those ranks, you go to mediation, negotiation, and client counseling competitions.
Okay, and are members of the CADR allowed to participate in that intra?
Yes,
whatever
they
it
are.
is?
So if they participate there, by the virtue of their ranks in that intra, they will be allowed to go to external competitions.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
What are the technical skills you look for if we have to apply for the technical team in social media handlings?
I think I can speak to that.
Yeah,
But
please.
yeah, so technical skills, I mean, it's mainly software you should be good with. general tech, but we expect some software proficiency as well. So generally, for example, if we're talking about social media, then social media team is more geared towards creativity with regards to having that bent of mind. But the design and tech team specifically looks for proficiency. So you should be good with stuff like WordPress, Wix, Canva, or other design softwares. But those are the basic softwares we expect proficiency with. If you have proficiency with some other very niche softwares, then well and good, I will bow down to you. But we expect a generally higher level of technical experience than the average law student, if that makes sense.
Thank you for answering.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask a very general question. First of all, thank you for speaking at length about ADR. But we all have just entered first year, and many of us, like, we have heard about ADR, but we don't know much about it. So what do you actually expect from a first year student to write and, organize and work in a center of ADR?
See, we look at your interest. One, that whether you have some interest. There, you can be at a point. I understand you are a first year. You don't have a lot of understanding about basic laws currently. So we can't expect anything specific in ADR. So basically, what we expect is one, your interest in ADR, that you think that you can contribute somewhere in ADR. Two most major things we look at is hard work and determination. If you're hardworking, we'll definitely have a place for you. If we see, because there is not only research that we do, we also have events. So you might start learning something about it. You might feel interested while you're working on something. So when we're looking for first year candidates, we look at how capable they are in working in general, how hardworking or how determined they can. Like if we give you some work, how reliable can you prove to be? So you don't
Okay.
have to worry when you come for interviews for CADR that we don't know anything about ADR. You just have to give your basic skills that you have. If you have additional skills, very well. And if you know something in general, that's great. But you don't have to be scared or nervous about the fact that you don't know.
No, not really scared, but a little confused because since we have entered, we are just being bombarded upon by different kind of centers, cells, and everything. But nobody is really telling us how to approach to it as a first year student. That's why.
You can, let's say you want to go to CADR. You think that you, first of all, ask yourself this question, everyone, that do you really think you want to go for ADR? If for a second you think that, yes, I might take interest in this topic, I might have fun while reading about it, while organizing events about it, go for it.